Okay, so now I'm going to get into like really kind of intensive ELD strategies. The one I'm going to start with comes from Christina Montero, who did research here in the Waterloo Board, maybe even with the students who are coming in, we'll have to see, where she introduced using guided reading and running records with students. If you're in PJ, you probably know what that means. I didn't because I'm a JI, I'm an intermediate teacher myself, so I wasn't familiar with guided reading and running records. Have you learned about that in school? Has everyone, or just the PJs? The JIs, have you? No, I didn't think so, because this is something you do in grade 1 and 2 to teach children how to read. So I'll go over a little bit, but you also have all these PJs who are much better experts in this area than I am, but it was new learning for me. So what you need to do is get level nonfiction readers. And the reason we say nonfiction is when you have children who are a little bit older, even in like grade 4 or 5, 6, 7, and 8, into high school, and you're giving them grade 1 and kindergarten level books, the fiction is just so babyish. It's not age appropriate, and I don't think that necessarily that the nonfiction is, but it's better. So out of the resources that are available, the nonfiction readers are a better priority. If the children do have some first language literacy skills, you can use dual language books. There's lots of online resources. Wordless picture books, I'm going to go through now and show you some of these. Okay, I put the step here. I'll talk about that later. Okay, so I kind of created a list of resources for you with hyperlinks that you can connect to and read about different texts. So I'll go through some of them with you now. So first of all, what is meant by guided reading and running records? You may, if you're a grade 1 teacher, have a formal program set up in your classroom where everyone is in kind of guided reading book, the reading centers, reading, and you go around and assess them. It might be very different for you if you're a classroom teacher and you just have 1 or 2 students who need this type of programming. So in that case, you'll have these readers, and you may want to work with some students in your class to sit with them daily, take turns, and you'll read through these books together and really use peer mentors. But try to find time, a couple times throughout the week, where you can sit and hear the kid read and check their progress. That's what a running record is. So they have the book in front of you. I've given you this link because it's the official one that you can follow. But what I do is I just rate the level of the book, its name, and I check for errors, how many errors a student makes, how many self-corrections they make while they're reading the book, and I time it, and then I'll ask them like a very simple comprehension question, like what is this book about? Okay? It might be hard to do that at the beginning when they're first learning oral conversation skills, but as they progress, you'll be able to use that more and more, and you really want to make sure they're comprehending as well as decoding the books, and you can track their progress. And what they found with their research in the Waterloo Board is the students who had this every week, I mean daily if you can, but a couple times a week, and had the reading every day, progressed so much faster. They really accelerate. We want to see students' literacy skills accelerating. And these kids will, if they're given the right tools, accelerate through their learning. And what Montero talked about in her research is how the students in the one class didn't have this kind of reading records. You as a classroom teacher don't have that ESL support. You could potentially have a student in your class take turns sitting with the students reading every day, and then maybe twice a week, whenever you can find time, a couple times a week. I mean, it's going to be hard for you because you have to teach the whole class, but if you can find little chunks, I mean, it takes 2 or 3 minutes to get through these books, just to check their progress and see how their reading's coming along. Yeah. It's much better and ideal if you have an ESL teacher or ELD teacher supporting you with this, and hopefully that's the reality, but just so you have strategies in case it isn't. Okay? One thing that the people involved in that project have done is they put together financial literacy texts. So they realized that there really are not a lot of books out there that are culturally responsive, age appropriate and kind of leveled readers that the kids can have access to. So I think they got a grant because they said it's financial literacy and people will give you money if you're, so that's what the books are. They're all about financial literacy. They're combining math with it. But this is through the Ergo, E-R-G-O. I have a link on my PowerPoint to it. And you can get free PDFs of these books. So this is another resource for you to use if you don't have access to them in your school. So you can have and you're able to print these out and they're free. One resource I've just recently been acquainted with is called Unite for Literacy. That's all you have to do is Google that. And it is great to use with my Arabic students because it has these different books, leveled books, and it will read them in English and also a variety of different languages. Normally I work with a lot of students who speak Urdu and Punjabi, and there's not as many resources available, but Arabic there seems to be a lot. So, so the students can click on a book, and they can hear it in English.
What colors do you read?
ما هي الألوان التي تأكلها؟ بقلم أو
So they can compare the two languages, understand what it means in Arabic, and then hear it in English. I might have them sit and read these books or listen to these books for a couple of times, and then they can sit with me and go through it and try reading it out loud in English. So then I could, after they've listened to it a number of times, do kind of a checklist oral assessment on their reading. Yes?
I was wondering if there's like young adult level of content, but like this level of like very beginning English books. Like how would you, even for myself, if I want to like learn another language, it's
yeah.
not young, you know what I mean? Like how do you find that?
Netflix.
Okay, that's just my question for my personal. Thank you. My first student. This is the one really difficult thing. There are a lot of what you call high-low readers, and so I have a lot of books around the grade 2-3 level, which aren't necessarily culturally responsive, but they're more age appropriate. But it's really hard once you start getting at this level. Like, these kids don't know how to read and write at all, and we don't have resources like this in our school. And so you, at the moment, what you're really having to use is the nonfiction resources at that kindergarten grade 1 level. However, as I was showing you, Ergo realizes this is a problem, and that's why they have this project where they're creating these online resources for the kids that are created by students. It's more relevant to them.
But yes, that's a really big issue. I mean, getting all these texts into the school is difficult, and even finding them. Are they even out there? And I'm going to show you a couple other things you can use as well. So the one of my favorite books to use with the kids, or one of my favorite strategies, is to use wordless picture books. And my favorite book, which I'm going to go through and show you some strategies with right now, is a book called Here I Am by Patty Kim. So it's a book that has pictures only and no words, but you can use a lot of reading strategies, like you can get into inferring point of view, some of the higher level thinking curriculum expectations by using wordless picture books with the students. It's also something they can relate to because it's about a young boy or girl journeying, we'll talk about that in a minute, journeying to, I believe it's New York. So what I do with the kids is I use my LCD projector and I zoom in on the pictures. So we might spend a whole lesson just looking at the first picture and using it to teach inferring, which is a curriculum expectation. So we do a lot of discussion about who this person is, because the kids all think it's a boy at first, but then when they find out the author is a woman who herself was an immigrant as a child and moved, and then some of them are convinced it's a girl. So we have lots of debates about gender and the child's gender identity. And they have lots of opinions about it. And then we also look at how this person feels. So you can, and you can do that with a lot of images. You can give the child an image and saying how does any image you find that's appropriate on the internet that's displaying emotion, ask them how does this person feel. You're starting to get into inferring where things aren't stated, but they're having to read between the lines and understand motivation. So how does this person feel? And how do you know that? What evidence is there in the picture to support that idea that this person is unhappy or sad? And then, understanding perspective, camera perspective even, that they're looking down at the city and that the child's inside an airplane. And how do you know that? And we also have discussions. Some of the kids think that that's their home that they're saying goodbye to, and other people think that they're scared of the new country they're coming to. So it's ambiguous, but we can get into discussions about that and interpreting text. So this picture here, I use a lot for point of view. So what I'd like you to do now is maybe turn to an elbow partner and just take 1 or 2 minutes to look at this picture and think about how could you use this picture to teach point of view. So point of view is another curriculum expectation that starts very young, where you have to understand different characters as well as the author's point of view. In grade 7 and 8, you even get into bias and how is bias coming out through this text. But if you could just take 2 minutes to turn to your elbow partner, look at this picture and think about how you could use it to teach point of view. So I'm going to end by just talking about marginalized students. So the low socioeconomic status is a big part, but also the marginalization of students is something we always need to think about with all our English language learners, but even more intensely with our students in ELD programs. And one of the big suggestions is to use identity texts, but it's difficult with identity texts. We learn that the children write about their own personal stories, their journeys in English in their first language. Sometimes if those children have experienced trauma, their journeys may be things they don't want to talk about, and they may not have written literacy skills in their first language. So one of the things, one of the resources you can use is, there's 2 things you can do. One of them is I had a young girl from Honduras one year, and she hadn't gone to school at all. She'd been there for about a year and was starting to experiment with written literacy. But her first language was Spanish, and so she used a lot of translanguaging, which meant when she wrote about her experiences back home and then coming to Canada, she would write a very simple sentence, and it was a mixture of English and Spanish. So she was experimenting with literacy, and that's where she needed to be, and that's what she was working through. And it was kind of the first experience of her writing and producing a text. The other thing is the use of spoken language, and so Book Creator is an app that you can purchase. It's $5. It's a good app, so it actually costs a little bit of money. And the students can create their stories using that app. I have an example of a student I did one with this fall, and I'm just going to show you a minute of it. He actually is a student we placed in ESL programs, but may actually be more appropriate for ELD. The more and more I find out about him, like first I was told that his first language was Urdu, but now I understand it's Punjabi, that the child was living in Pakistan. So a lot of these things you find out as you get to know the kids. So you just kind of have to be responsive to where they're at. Some kids, you're going to say, oh, they belong in the ELD program. This child belongs in the ESL. But there's a lot of students in the ESL program who might need some of these strategies occasionally. And some additional support beyond the ESL program. So with him, he really struggled to even write Urdu because it wasn't his first language, and he went to school only for a year or 2 in Urdu. I'm not getting clear stories about what he did for the rest of the years of his education, but he talks a lot, very negatively about his experiences in school, and was very withdrawn, and took a while to pull him out of himself and get him writing. So when he created this text, it was really the first time I had gotten him to write independently. So there are a lot of mistakes he was making. I've decided to focus in on just constructing a simple sentence, leave out a lot of other things. And also, he chose to speak about his life in Canada. He didn't want to speak about back home. So some children will want to talk about their journeys to Canada, but if you have a child, especially if you're a Syrian girl, like we're not necessarily going to talk about their journeys. That's something that maybe a psychologist should do, and maybe they don't want to talk about them, right? They're at school, they want to be in a safe environment, but you can still do identity text with the kids. It's just what they're comfortable with. So, I'll just show you a little bit of this.
My name is Shazir. I like PSG. I love GT4 and GT5. मेरा नाम शर्जित अली है. मुझे PSG अच्छी लगती है. मुझे GT4 से GT5. मुझे घर जाना और मेरे बेडरूम में और बैग में डालना. I go home and put the bag on the floor in my bedroom.
So he kind of goes on in this manner for a while. He talks about going to the Dollarama and buying chocolate. You know, these are really important things to him. So again, we have a child who's just playing around with literacy. I was told that Urdu was the first language, and so then he used this, but now that I really know that Punjabi is his first language, I would encourage him to just write in English and speak it in Punjabi, because when he speaks in Punjabi, he's so confident. And I found it interesting with this video that he didn't sound nearly as confident, because a lot of times the kids sound so confident in their first language, but I wasn't getting that with this. And a lot of the teachers who know how to read and write Urdu in my school said that it was full of mistakes, so it was really, Urdu was a challenging language for him as well. All this plurilingual things happening in complex students. So I'm just going to finish off and just say, you know, we want our students to learn how to say, I am literate, become independent and confident. And you know, any resources you can put in place for them to feel positive about school and to become more independent are really important.